Hey gang, Kevin here, Life22, and it is the day after the Super Bowl. Well, not the football Super Bowl, but like my Super Bowl. You know, the election day. It's always a big day for me. It's one of the few times I actually go out throughout the year. I used to go out all the time, as most of you who know me personally knew. Like, if you knew me from that era of my life, I was out a lot. And now I'm out working and then, in at night. So, but it's one of the few nights that I get to go out. And so we made our rounds, whatnot. But a lot of people are vested in the local race, right? And I want to start with the local races, right? So, and as we should be, right? Like our local representation, I mean, the things are supposed to be feeling at home, like the decisions that your aldermen make, the decisions that your mayor makes, things like that. Those are the things that are supposed to affect you on a daily basis, because they're like laws that they pass, like should affect you directly. And that's how government is supposed to work. They're supposed to be like, the laws here affect you on a daily basis. The laws here are kind of just like, you get all the way to the top and it's like, don't murder people. Like, okay, well, yeah, that's something we can agree upon on all levels. Like, we're not going to murder people. We're not going to do this. We're not going to do that. But like, when all of a sudden you have like the federal government passing a you can't fart in a closet, or you can't fart outside rule, and you can only fart in interior rooms in your house, like that. Like, that doesn't trickle down for everybody. Like, that doesn't affect anything. There's nobody masking cows from farting. Anyways, we're going on farts. But yeah, no. So, and that's the why a lot of people are vested. But that's not how our system works, right? Our system works the way I just described it, right? Where the government passes like arbitrary stuff, like your grass can only be 4 inches tall. Any taller, you're going to federal jail. Like, and then it's like they're passing it all the way down, and it's like, no. Like, some municipalities don't care, right? Like, your farm town, like, nobody has their grasses 4 inches, you know what I mean? Because they've got acres of land in front of their house because it's a farm, right? Like, so that's how it's supposed to work, and that's why most people are invested, or it's how it does work, the overreaching large government, and it's not supposed to be that way, and so like naturally humans are just like they don't care as much about other municipalities. They don't care. They care less about the state government or the federal government than they do about the local government, right? They care more about that, which they should if the system worked correctly, but that's part of the problem. But anyways, so what ends up happening with this system of ours is we don't work because the system doesn't work as it's supposed to, where it's strong local government all the way up to weak main federal government. When you elect a mayor or a common councilman or this stuff, their laws aren't affecting you because they're already preempted by state law, federal law, things like that. And it's like, well, you can't allow people to have their grass at 8 inches tall in your farm town because in non-suburban neighborhoods, like, it's like, well, why? It's like, well, because the state government said that they've already said it's this, and you can only go more restrictive. So you can say 2 inches, and it becomes one of those like pain in the ass things. Anyways, so we had our mayoral race and a bunch of alderman races, and to tell you the truth, the two different locations I stopped by, they were kind of mainly focused on the mayoral race, and that's kind of what I'm going to get into today. And so, like, normally there's like 15 different people I'm watching, and there was just a whole bunch of like non-contested races last night, or partially contested, and it was like it's like the New York City race, right? Like, I kind of followed that, and I followed our local mayor's race. But it's like, man, I didn't, it's like if you were following New York City, you did not pay attention to like the guy, the Republican candidate, like it was like, well, because he's going to lose. You just knew it. You weren't like sitting there watching with bated breath, like cheering him on the sidelines, because it wasn't happening. It was, how bad is he going to get slaughtered? And it was like, I prefer not to watch. So, that said, we're Yeah, so a lot of people with the local mayor's race and stuff, they're very, very vested in. If you watch our local Facebook groups and stuff like that, people are, and they're some people are getting really nasty. They go after the old candidate and they're like, well, we need change and blah blah blah, and it's like, and I had to curtail a couple of them because it's like we run a neighborhood watch group and it's like this is non-political. And then they're constantly, at a certain point, like I can't be on it like 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, just like removing political posts when it says like we're not a political group. Like I'm political and everything else that I do, that group is not really politics. And so like you shouldn't be on there promoting politics when it's like a junkie and homelessness problem and a crime problem, right? Like, yeah, sure, you could say that you can make the stretch that that's homelessness or that's politics, and it's like no. That's downstream of politics. That's culture. That's a culture issue. And like we could talk about the culture issue if you'd like to and how we can solve the crime issue. But sitting there talking about how your candidate's so great, like it's like, okay, guys, great. We have things to do. And that's kind of where I'm going with this is it's like, hey, so as most of you probably have already seen, Amy Sherburne had won by a landslide. And congratulations to Amy. I stopped by her place and I congratulated her last night. And it's one of those things. It's like, people ask me who I thought was going to win, and I try to not be biased in this. I gave Amy as much time as she wanted on the podcast. She was here for like 2 hours and 45 minutes. She was at my house for 3.5 hours. You know what I mean? Bill was under the weather that day, and it was the first it was the first day it was getting hot. When Amy was here, it was kind of chilly, so it was like my office was nice and warm, boilers off, and I hadn't put the air conditioner in, and Bill was under the weather, and it was like the stuffiest day. But I mean, he made it for an hour and a half. You know what I mean? I gave every candidate the amount of time that they wanted or they were comfortable with. But yeah, like I've told most people, like, yeah, did I support Bill over Amy? Yeah. But you also have to remember, like, that's not like, who do I think is going to make the best political change, right? Like, do I think that, one candidate was truly better than another? In some regards, yes, because I know Bill. And I don't know Amy that well. Like I've got a good understanding of where Amy comes from and all that other stuff. And I'm not saying she's a bad candidate. I'm just saying that, I chose Bill, and that was no like disrespect to Amy. It was just I chose Bill. I served with Bill for 5 years on the Common Council. I had dealt with Bill prior to that for like a year as a landlord. I've worked under Bill's administration for the last 4.5 years. So like I have good rapport with him. We butt heads a little bit. You go back and forth just like anybody you have a relationship with, right? It's never all smiles and cupcakes, and it shouldn't be all like Popeye and Bluto death grip, right? So, and we've had our fair share of both, and so because of that history, I voted for Bill, and I supported Bill. People ask me like, oh, your colors are showing because you're letting him put signs up on your buildings. It's like, he asked. I told anybody who wanted to put signs up, they could put signs up, but you had to ask. And after saying that, only one of the aldermen had asked me to put signs up on my properties, and she did. So it was one of those, like, I wasn't gonna like renege on my offer. I just that was the policy I was taking, and I made it clear to people. So it was just one of those. But yeah, no, I mean, but either way, like, whoever won last night, regardless of what the outcome was, like, you're not going to make all these changes. And I always like, I keep faulting like Guido. He's a local commentator on our channel, or not our channel, but on a lot of our Facebook groups. And he's constantly, sharing his Amy banter, and all these junkies are going to disappear as soon as Bill's out of office. It's like, man, like, it's not going to work that way, man. You can't just snap your fingers and he's gone. Or these people are gone. Like, Bill's going to leave, Amy's going to be there, and she's got a learning curve. So you're going to have that. That's going to be a legitimate thing that people are going to have to grapple with. And that's just, it is what it is. You've got to, it's probably going to be the first couple of years at least. I know as an alderman, my first term was just learning. just soaking it up, because you can't, if you don't know the rules of the game, right? Like you're just like, oh, I'm the best, and you just, I can do this, I can do that, and then you come in and you've never played euchre, you've never played poker, you've never played chess, and you just like, you spend the first game or two playing and learning the rules so that you can, because if you like, you go to move a piece, it's like, oh, can't do that, oh, can't do that, oh, can't do that, and that's a lot of your first term, really. So it's not going to be day one homeless people abolished, corralled and shipped off. Like it's just not. There's state laws in place that are going to prevent all that, and it's just it's one of those like But a lot of people got vested in it, and it's good to see. I'm not going to fault people for being vested in their local elections. They should be. You should be vested in your local elections. Hopefully someday it goes to how America was designed, which is small federal government, small state government, huge local government. And not huge in terms of like, compared to the other two, it should be huge. In compared to how it runs your life, government should be like 4% of your life. That's it. Like, it's just preventing you from doing like the high end of the bell curve on most extreme bad shit you shouldn't do. And then like fighting the gray area of the last 6% before it hits 90, where 90% of your life is not government related. And that's how it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be land of the free. But anyways, I'm not going to fault people for going out there and voting. It was a higher turnout than I normally see, and that's probably because of all the people vested in the local election. Bill, I think the last numbers I heard towards the end of the night was it was with like 70 to 100 like absentee ballots still in the mail or could be postmarked to be counted, which will trickle in the next week. It was like she won by 76% or something. So that was one of the numbers that they had calculated. And it was, hey, but that's what happens when you lose a major party line. I think she had good momentum. I think it was if it was a head-to-head race, and I told people this, like, if it was a head-to-head race, Republicans versus Democrats, it was going to be, I thought it was going to be more of a toss-up. But a lot of times, there are a lot of people out there, and I know people get faulted for this all the time, but most people are dumb. And if they, you know what I mean? So you got to think that, like, even if they're voting, you got to still think that, like, out of all the people out there, if like 50% of them are just like illiterate, you know what I mean? The other 50% are like the scale of functioning to like super intelligent. Then, like, out of all the people that show up to vote, it's not like just all the super intelligent people vote, because there's a lot of people that are like super intelligent and rationalize their way away from voting in general. So like you get that same scale can move forward. You can say, okay, well, like 50% of people that vote are just, and that's when you go door to door, you find that like people don't they don't look at the candidate. They just say Republican or Democrat. Like, well, it shouldn't matter. Oh, it does matter to me. And they just pull the lever. So if you're not on that Republican line or you're not on that Democratic line, they're not pulling for you. And so that's why more lines is better, because there's these people that have this team mentality like it's sports, which, hey man, I think it's sports, but you pick a team, but you base it on the issue. It's based on your values, stuff like that, because political parties are politics, and it's downstream from your culture, it's downstream from your values. So if your values conflict with your political party, pull a different line. Like, if you don't have any values, then pull your party line. That's really what it comes down to with people, and most people don't have value anymore. Like, they don't have values. They don't have, like, things they care about. A lot of people are talking, you get political people out there, like, talking about, wishing death upon their opponents. Like, that's at a grander scale, not anywhere near us, but it's like, that's, what do you do about, like, that's people without values. So they're just gonna I'm a lifelong Republican, I'm a lifelong Democrat, just sling. And they don't hold values of what their party stood for, or they don't have values of their own and whatnot. But anyways, that's most people. Or some people, like, I've talked to some people that are like, well, yeah, I see how many people, like, so if you see that somebody's name's on 2 lines and somebody's name's on 3 lines, I've had people tell me, like, I'll vote for that guy because a lot of people must like him if he's on 3 lines. And it's like, or her, or whatever. And it's like, well, That's not how many people like him. That's just somebody playing the game a little better, like tweaking some stuff, or like convincing little committees of people to put you on their line. Because you can be put on somebody's line even though you don't even agree with their party values. It's just, and at a local level, it's like, I'm friends with this person, I'm friends with that person, I'm friends with this person, and you can just make it happen. I don't agree with a lot of things that Democrats say, but I was put on their party line before. They put me on their party line, and they held to their word, which, hey, I'm not going to fault them for it, but I've been using that term a lot today. I'm not going to fault them for it, but man, like, they, at the 11th hour, an opponent of mine came out of like left field and said, I'm going to run, and I'm a Democrat. And so they normally the Republicans would rescind it. It would be like, sorry, we actually have a Republican running and we got to stay with our party. The Dems said, no, we told you we were going to vote for you. We were going to put you on our line, and we're going to put you on our line. And they did. And he forced a primary, and I beat him at his own primary in his own party, and it's like, and so I was on 4 lines. I was on the conservative line, the independents line, the Republicans, and then I won the primary, and I was on the Democratic line. So the Democrat line. So I had 4 lines, and it was like, the people run write-in campaigns, and those always stink, and that's really what Bill had going for him, was he had a he was still on the ballot because he had the Lincoln line, which is like it's one of those, like, you can do you go out and get non-party affiliated people to help you create a party line. And then if you don't fill out the paperwork in the coming years, it just kind of falls by the wayside. So, yeah, it was one of those, like, he had the Lincoln line. And for having a non-main party line, like, I don't think he did pretty bad. Like, I think he did pretty well for himself in that. And, you got to think, he's been in politics forever. So he's been in the community forever. So I think that kind of explains, you have those diehard followers that will pull the lever for you. And then, but then, even then, like, I got people out there that'll, that tell me to lay down in traffic for me. But then when I go to, like, when there's actually an election, people are like, oh yeah, but it's an election. Like, if my kids were in a burning building, there's tons of people in this city that would run in gladly if I was out of town on business and run in and save my kids, risk their own lives. But if you tell them it's election day, they're like, oh, I forgot. Like, it's not that important. It's not a fire. It's not anyone's life at stake. At least that's how people perceive it. And that's where it comes down to it. So it's like, you have all these people that are going to support you, but then they forget to vote. And it's like, oh, well, thanks for the support. So, it is what it is. I wanted to break down the local mayor's race. There's a lot of people vested in it. Like I said, I don't think it's going to change anything. Some parliamentary thing. It's going to be like, it's going to be a relearning experience for both Amy and then the council, and how they can work together. And it's like, when you already had that with, like, you know what I mean? You already had this group of 7 people working with the mayor who had been there for 12 years. So I get it. Like, people want change. Fine. That's great. But at the same time, I don't think you're going to get people want, like, upend it. Like, we're going to have no government. Like, no, that's not going to happen. There's going to be no, like, drastic major change. It's going to just be smaller things that the day-to-day things. Well, we're gonna wait a couple days on charging you a late fee on your water bill, or, you know what I mean? Just like little. That's what you're looking at. I could tell you 12 years with Bill. He would not like, refund a charge for a water bill, because all that stuff goes to him. Like, that, he's his final say so on, like, hey, this was, unless it was like a drastic error, like, or, hey, I parked here, I got a parking ticket, I was here for a meeting with you, I put the meter in, our meeting ran 15 minutes late. Like, he was one of those, he was stickler for the rules. Sorry, you should have interrupted our meeting, cut it early to go put a meter in it if it was that important. And, it's one of those, like, maybe Amy's more lenient on, waiving parking tickets. It's like, but that's the stuff I'm getting at that you're gonna see. That's it. I don't see any grandiose change. It also has to do with finances. The city's and everyone always they misinterpret the jobs of the mayor. The mayor's job is to run the day-to-day operations of the city and execute the will of the council. And the will of the council is conveyed in terms of minor code changes as well as the purse strings. Well, we're going to allocate money for this. We'd like you to do this with the money. So when they set the money there, you're supposed to execute the orders that they gave with that money, or at least the intent of why they put the money there. And that's the day-to-day of the mayor. Is executing those orders throughout the course of the year and make sure the city is functioning. But above and beyond, that's why the mayor has veto power for some of these. That's why the mayor sits in as a placeholder in some of these meetings, is because he has to, or now she has to go through and get their placeholders for this. They have the veto power because at their core, they're supposed to have the best interest of their constituents and the city as a whole you know what I mean? So if for some reason the council gets an idea in their head that they need to do this, this, and this at all costs to the detriment of the city, well, yeah, then the mayor can step in. And I don't have a great example off the top of my head, but if whatever they're choosing, they don't see what maybe the mayor sees and says, hey, this is going to lead to financial ruin, he can veto it. And that's really what it comes down to. I don't think that's in the best interest of the city. I think that's like a vanity project over, we think that, re-sprucing up this park is, worth $3 million. And it's like, well, we don't have the $3 million to spend. Well, I guess we'll take it out of something else. And all of a sudden, we're like, we have like 2 less snow plows out on the streets during winter and, whatever. So it's like, okay, well, that's, snow plowing is more important for public safety and commerce and things like that than a park. A park is like ancillary, really, when it comes to it. Like, yes, parks are nice, but they're not as important as like police or fire. They're not as important as running water or getting the sewage out of your home. It's just not. Like, you can't go to work every day now because like you're not sure when your street's going to get plowed. And it's like, well, yeah, but my kids can go and play in that park in the summer and spring and late and early fall. Like, well, okay. But so anyways, gang, there was a 25-minute rant for you this morning. And just wanted to give you my take on the mayor's race. I know as those votes trickle in, I know that the percentages were pretty off. So I don't surmise it's going to change anything on the level of on the level of the results changing, directly affecting the results. But it is what it is. And well, with that said, we will see you guys next time. Congratulations to Amy, Bill. It was a hell of a run, and. We'll catch you guys next time on Life22. We may do a little bit more breakdown of this. I know I want to cover the mayor's race in New York City at some point this week. I want to talk about, there's always something I want to talk about, but we'll catch you guys later. Life22.